What is up, everyone? I'm Steve, and these are the Memoirs of an Indonesian American, a show that shares experiences, tips, and tools that have shaped friends of mine to become who they are today. I hope that there's something here that you can relate to, whether you're Indonesian or not. For those of you that are new to the podcast, welcome. And for those who are tuning in once again, I appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. In this episode, we'll be talking with Praise. He's an awesome friend, a great leader, an overall genuine guy. He studied nursing and is currently working in healthcare. We'll be discussing the Indonesian American experience, our challenges, our identity, some advice that he has, and of course his favorite verse and daily essential tool. Let's have a listen. I'm here with Praise, and we're going to kick things off and just go ahead and ask him our first question. Praise, what are you passionate about?
All right, so the first thing that comes to mind is Seattle. Seattle and everything that encompasses Seattle. I was actually born in Sacramento, California, but I claim Seattle or Washington as home, the PNW, and reason being is it's just a beautiful place. Nature-wise, it's one of the best places to visit, especially during the summertime. Everything's green still, not like brown here, unlike California down here. And one of the greatest things that come out of that city is the Seahawks, and so I'm a huge Seahawks fan. Especially now, post Russell Wilson, I'm still a huge Seahawks fan. Besides that, my home church is from there. That's where I grew up, and my mom is still up there, so there's a lot of things that tie me back to there. Besides that, I have other passions as well, but I guess more in the more meaningful sense, I have a burden for like my fellow peers in the sense of like in church, I notice there's been a dissonance between like my generation and younger too with the relevancy to them with church. Mm-hmm. And I've noticed like it's been kind of sad to see seeing friends leave the church or not associate with that anymore, associate with the religion or with God anymore. Mm-hmm. And not that I'm at a higher stepping stool or whatever above them, but more so that I know that there's an importance to being a part of this, not just mainly just for your life, and all the morals that it teaches and everything. Yeah.
Awesome. I know in talking about the spiritual sense, when we think about Christ's method and your relationship with Jesus, to me, my understanding is Jesus didn't come down to literally come down for us. If we're considered quote unquote lowly beings, it's more of he came down to bring us up with him. So he's not treating you like you're lesser than him. Mm-hmm. And we don't want people to have that perception that we're treating people less than them. We want them to be greater, once they connect with Christ.
Yeah, and I like that.
I know, yeah, and that is a struggle that I know our generations and even other denominations are facing. So that's awesome. I really appreciate that, and I too share that burden. I know we have our own clusters, even in our little home churches, our small towns, but it's good to know that there are people out there that are still interested in, helping and provide that connection or maybe an example of what it could be like, mm-hmm. to have a relationship, or even if it makes a difference. Because I know there's a lot of layers to our identity, and that is a really crucial, critical piece to it, mm-hmm. In my opinion. Awesome. Cool. Let's go ahead and jump into something that is really important to me and these podcasts, these episodes, is what you love about being Indonesian American, what that really means to you, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. There's a few things, definitely. And I think the fact that I kind of have a culture, because I see in America, we're a huge melting pot. And, There's people who claim that they have 15% Irish or 15% English or Scottish, but like, what do you identify with? Like, what is your primary ethnicity? And I feel, from what I've seen, I've grown through. I went through public school and I've seen all kinds of like ethnicities, and I feel like those who are more into their culture or have a better understanding or appreciation for their culture are those who are more so, I'd say, like tapped into it also because they are more like purely that, like they're, as in like their background, their genetic background is like, oh, I'm Indonesian, fully Indonesian, or I'm fully Vietnamese, or I'm fully Mexican. Whereas those who have different like cultural makeup is just hard to identify with. And so I appreciate that. And then with that comes with the food, and I love the food. Honestly, I would say it's like top 3 in my list. That's like near.
No bias.
No, well, I mean a little bit, but honestly, I've tasted many cuisines, and I think Indian and Thai are on top there, but Indonesian cuisine is like really high.
So you named 2 of the most, I would say, like tastiest, spiciest. Like they utilize spices more than any other cultures, I would say.
Yeah, actually, yeah, and that's probably where my palate comes from because that's how I grew up, and then I only appreciate those who
Love
can
the flavor,
know how to
though.
cook. Yeah.
On the flip side of that, you mentioned people almost struggling with their identity because there's so many things. What challenges do you feel you faced just knowing that you're Indonesian, your background is Indonesian, your heritage is, but now you're living life almost 50-50 as an American because we do live in America?
Yeah, I think it's something that I didn't really notice. At least I wasn't more aware of a challenge until I grew up. Until I became more of an adolescent to my college years, that I noticed that there's a dissonance between me and like my parents and like the younger generation and old generation. I think for one thing, because I grew up in a Indonesian household, is kind of the parenting style and how my parents rose me, and starting to see people my age who have parents or who have kids, sorry, and parents. Just like you, and to see like there is a slightly different parenting style, and it can go down to how you discipline kids, and that's actually a huge thing. Back when I grew up, it was either the belt or the slope, or I don't know if I got the hanger, but either one of those, it was terrible. Was that kind of a similar situation for you?
Yeah, just whatever they could pick up, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so, looking back, I'm like, wow, this is very strict, and also the fact that it seems like we can't be as open as we fully can of ourselves within the Indonesian culture, I guess, or at least to what I know of it about. And that's what I notice now. Like, I feel like when I have gone through American school and the system and just meeting other people of different cultures and backgrounds, I've noticed like, wow, people are more open in their family dynamic than I was when I growing up. And so those were some challenges that I didn't realize at the moment because I thought that's just how I grew up. But later down the road, like even till today, I'm starting to have a better peak knowledge of like, whoa, this is really a huge challenge.
Would you happen to have any advice for navigating the whole Indonesian experience, whether you're aware of it or not?
Yeah. I think to touch on the fact of being able to open up and to speak up, I think that's one thing. We should not be afraid to speak up. But I think we should definitely do it out of love and respect. I think many times as Asians, I think, or as like me being the, what's it called? What's that attachment style, I think, where it's like vacillator or something, basically, or an avoidant personality, or avoidant attachment style. That's where you essentially hold your feelings until like a certain point, or you don't even express them at all. And I think that's how I was growing up. I didn't fully express myself. And so I think what I would challenge other people to do nowadays is to kind of express how you feel, but within a loving and respectful way, because we tend to maybe be a little bit more outspoken nowadays, maybe high emotion.
Yeah.
Even in these last couple of years, you've noticed, like, it's great we share our opinion, but I think it's about the way, it's really about the way that we deliver it. And we have to be very mindful of how we deliver it too, in a loving, courteous, respectful way. And so with that, I think, if in a practical sense, we could we can have these talks, but like, who do we talk to first? Maybe it could be that person that you first started with, which is your parents. Like, those were the people that maybe set that culture for you, that way of thinking you can't open up, or you can't, or we have to live in the strict way. I think they may have some things maybe they want to share. Maybe they wasn't given that opportunity to speak when they were younger, and that's why they're projecting it maybe so onto their children now. And so I think, and the reason why I say that is because in recent years, me and my mother, we've started to talk about things that I wouldn't have never imagined younger talking about, and even like about relationships and stuff, and seeking her advice, or telling her like, hey, I have a crush on this girl, or like, hey, like I'm talking to this girl, and she would ask me like, hey, so how's this going on, in different parts of my life, and I think that even though it's kind of a basic thing, it helps us to get closer, because we allow the space to be open with each other. And so that could be the first person that you can talk to, and then it can expand well, and that could be a template as to how you approach other people.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I know I felt that way too, and I don't know if it's like a culture thing, because I know a lot of Asian cultures are really implicit, in the styles, like almost like suck it up, and they don't even say anything. It's just, you just have to fight your battles and navigate through it on your own. And here in America, it's almost like the opposite. It's like, and I know a lot more is being thrown into mental health awareness and being able to seek counseling, and it's very encouraged nowadays, because having an outlet is a positive thing. I know in my experience, I did feel the same way, because my parents, I never really talked to them about feelings and stuff, but now that I'm older, they're pretty much okay, and we talk about everything. It could be just maybe the way they were raised and their style. They're like, I'm going to tell you how things are up until you're an adult, and when I even can see you're an adult. So I know some might even be scared, to talk to your parents about stuff. So do you know anybody? Are there any other people that we could probably share and connect with in our experiences and feelings that are maybe outside our familial circle?
I think there are, and I think there is a need to do that. I think the fact that we were grown in this way to not be able to open up, maybe we show that within our own relationships with our friends or our significant others. And so I think those are the other people that we need to share those conversations with.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. Now outside looking in, let's say I wasn't Indonesian and I was coming across somebody that maybe was learning American culture or trying to figure out what their Indonesian culture was. We're all, I guess, on the search for our own identity, but how would you feel on the outside looking in, interacting with an Indonesian here in America? Would you feel there were any challenges or some barriers? I know for me personally, it was kind of like, oh, Steve, you came to school. Did you have Chinese food this morning? I was like, no, my mom was just cooking. I was like, I don't smell it. But that could have been a barrier, because some people, I doubt people actually, dislike Chinese food, because everybody does. But there might be some that are just like, you smell funny, or something like that. Have you ever faced anything like that?
Thankfully, not really. There may be some racist remarks, not really, but I think, I don't know why this came to mind, but the first thing that came to mind was maybe back in grade school when I was younger. I remember being called by my Hispanic friends Chino, So it's just like male Chinese person. I think that's how you say it. And so, but I'm not Chinese, and
Right.
I think I distinctively look different than a Chinese person does. So that's that. I mean, I think it's more so a lot of ignorance without ill intent. At least what I've experienced, thankfully. But that's just their issue. But I haven't really encountered nothing too crazy. I mean, I used to live in the South, which is interesting, right? I went to Southern, graduated from there from nursing school, and I ended up working there for like 1 to 2 years. And I worked directly with people of the South, and they're very, they have a great Southern hospitality, but I noticed there is some ignorance there in terms of like who I am or like how I come off as, and because they think I may be one race or the other. And I've heard other stories too, and you can even you've already heard other stories with other ethnicities, But I don't think it was necessarily something crazy I've been through.
Yeah, that's good. And it's not like it's anyone's fault that you're ignorant to anything. It just happens to be that first instance that was the interaction. I was called China boy in like first grade or whatever.
Yeah.
Now, in some places, and if you're really prideful of your culture, which you can be, you might take offense, right? But like in other cases, you might find that term endearing because you might be the only Asian person somebody knows. So, in a sense, you could look at it that way. Because I've seen a lot of people now understand because Indonesia was not on, I would say, like the map, like for others knowing where the country was. I've been called Filipino or Chinese.
Yeah. Right.
But only recently I feel like I've been called like people know you're Indonesian, and I like that. I think that's really cool. Cool.
Yeah, I'd agree to that. Like, it's not as on the map as like Filipinos, right? And so people often mistaken me. Oh, that's one thing I guess is people think I'm Filipino, or you probably got that too here and there. And so, but the fact that as people start to notice, oh, you're Indonesian, that's actually cool because it's something that no one has noticed or not as much noticed before. And now they're noticing. Now it's like, wow, we're being recognized.
Yeah. Make your mark on the world, everyone. Cool. All right. Now I wanted to shift gears on our third piece of identity. We talked about cultural heritage, and now we wanted to talk about our spiritual identity. I know that we all go through, and even the world as a whole, all denominations and churches are going through a weird phase, and it's we're noticing a big decline, let's say, in religious denominations and I guess the membership. But we do have lots of resources, and there are both sides to this coin where yes, there's part of religion that you might feel is a burden to you, but there are also opportunities of it that come from it. I know you and I both were raised in these SDA churches and homes and communities. But at this point, coming so far, in your career, in your schooling, in your relationships with others, what has kept or what is keeping you involved in a few things? Maybe church, maybe your relationship with Christ, or even ministry, knowing you could use your talents, elsewhere, let's say in a more secular environment.
That's a good question. Yeah, actually, I'll kind of introduce this. So I am a part of this ministry called AIM, Adventist Indonesian Youth Ministry. And recently we are trying to incorporate a new event called AIMCon, and maybe you listeners out there may have heard it at this point. If not, it'll be more so coming out more in the next year or so. Look out for that. And so, what's kept me in this, like in ministry, kind of in the church versus, man, I could be using my time elsewhere, my talents elsewhere. I think going back to parenting and like my childhood, as much as it sounded like I bashed on my parents a lot, I also want to give them credit for, what they've provided me and the foundation, more so the spiritual foundation. again, it was very strict, but they were really pushing. I mean, they were pushing, Adventism upon us really hard. You cannot watch TV on Sabbath, which is, I understand to I understand the context now, and other things as well. But it led us to like have a moral foundation, and that's I think that's what's kept me too, because I have something to fall back to, or like I have some kind of like unconscious spine, moral spine, I guess, that my parents have raised me up to have, I guess. And with that, that's one thing. So me being able to fall back on like what I was raised helps me to stay in church, right? Or stay and be a part of this ministry. And then something that I touched on before was one of my passions, and the passion of being there for my fellow peers and seeing that some people, fall away from the church. And for some reason, I'm sure it's God instilled, but I just have like some sort of burden to bring them back, or like to bring them back to community. And so that's why I'm a part of ministries like AIM. And then thirdly, I would also attribute it to others who share the same burden, others who are on the same mission, because that inspires me, because I obviously can't do that alone. The fact that we have AIMCon right here in AIM, to see all these different parts and these different peoples with different talents, it's just amazing to see, and only inspires me to continue on with what I'm doing. Yeah, that's basically it.
Awesome. I would say for me, it kind of gives me a sense of purpose. Not in the sense that we necessarily always have a direction every day to go, but that, like you mentioned, we can fall back on something. I know that, not saying those without religion are aimless, but I feel like I always have a goal that I can strive for at the end of the day without even thinking it. Helping others can be the goal, and that in turn could lead to something special. I know that we're kind of on this quest to help people, and I think baseline, if you ever ask anyone what you want to do in life, it's help people, and that's always the goal. But if you can take it one step further to even help yourself, I think that adds that extra level of purpose and belonging too, because there are others that want to do the same thing. Now, let's say I was without all of those things, because some may not have, familial upbringing that's that strict. Some may not have a community in their area that actually believes. So how would you go about someone, maybe an individual, and what advice would you give for the individual that's seeking to do the same thing?
That's huge. Yeah, I mean, I guess I am. It makes me think I am privileged in a sense, and praise God. That's I guess. So, I would tell them to seek community, and I mean, it may not be in the form of a church, but I have someone there to be a support for you. Find that support system. Have a support system, because I feel if you were not raised in a certain way or with good morals or a good background, you'd have to reach out to somebody who has that, some kind of community. That's really the only way, because living on our own can't work through.
I think oftentimes, most recently, I'm thinking about you are who your friends are, and just building community is really important, only because you have now more access to other tools, other resources, other perspectives on life that can really help you. And not only that, you could be your own, ministry. You could be your own evangelism. You could change the world, and it only has to be in a community that may not even be super religious, right? But at least you just have to start, even in a secular environment. I mean, the start of Adventism, the start of any religion had to start somewhere, So if that's still a burden, a positive burden, an uplifting an experience that you can share with others, that's what I think we're getting at and trying to encourage. Is if you don't have that many people to be something for you, you never know, if you decide to be something for somebody else, how much that'll impact their life. Whether that was the smallest thing to the biggest, whether it's you gave them a meal or you help find them a home. Um, it could mean the world of a difference. And it doesn't even, in my opinion, evangelizing and ministering doesn't have to be that explicitly religious,
Yeah.
for someone to be affected or find some genuine hope, love, all that fun, good feeling stuff that people are looking for. Awesome. One last one as we talk about our spiritual development and growth and how important it is, or even why we even feel like it's important. How do you feel that you um, portray something beneficial in your career, personally?
Mm-hmm. Can you rephrase that one more time?
How do you feel like you model like your church in your career, even if it's not specifically Jesus this, Jesus that?
Right. Yeah, so I work as a nurse, as a nurse practitioner now, more recently, and it's really through how you interact with the patients, how you behave. It's not just a matter of what you say, because anyone can say something nice, but if they don't follow up with how they perform and what they do, it almost is meaningless. So with nursing, it's a very hands-on, very patient-centered, patient-directed care. You're right in front of the patient, so oftentimes they are observant people too, and they will notice the small things, like you not bringing their cup of water because they've told you 5 other times, or like maybe they told you that first time and you did. So people will take up on that, and they'll notice that. They'll notice on your demeanor. They'll take notice on how you portray yourself and how you treat others, how you interact with other professionals and with them, especially as the patient. And so I think the best way, if like as a Christian, if you wanted to, portray, your religion or your way of living to others, is to be like Christ. It's as simple as that, and to be show that as practical as can be, even with providing a cup of water. If you're, let's say, a waitress or a nurse, we're basically waitresses, just with narcotic prescription ability to give that out. So just live it out. That's really what I'd say.
And you wouldn't say character is built overnight?
Oh, definitely not. No. It's no. I think there's a lot of things I was ironing out throughout my 20s. And I am still in my 20s, if you hear this later on, hopefully I've ironed out more things. But definitely over time.
Awesome. We always look for, growth and development. And like Ray said, it doesn't happen. It won't just happen. You work on it, and you're hopeful that you can be something special to others. But it does take time, Us today wasn't us 10 years ago. Us 10 years ago wasn't us 20 years ago, So don't feel like you're in a rut. Even if you do, there's always, what would you say there always is? There's another day, another opportunity, another experience you can get right. Because not every day is going to be perfect.
No, and I think you can just keep learning from your mistakes. If we didn't have mistakes, we wouldn't be able to learn. I think that's as simple as that.
For sure. Awesome. Let's go ahead and jump into 2 last things that I typically do on our podcast. Is do you happen to have a favorite Bible verse or favorite quote that you live by?
Yes. So when you provided me these questions, I did think of something that came to mind, and it's one of my favorite Bible verses, actually, and it's Joshua 1 verse 9, and I have it memorized, so hopefully I don't flunk on this over air, I guess. It's Joshua 1 verse 9. Have not I commanded thee, be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid nor dismayed, for the Lord thy God is with you whithersoever thou goest. That's the KJV.
Oh, yeah, full KJV.
Yeah. So this is in context of God speaking to Joshua, and as we know, Joshua was a huge leader of Israel, and conquered wars and people for God's will, and we can think about Jericho and how that happened. It's crazy because you can really break that down. As I was thinking about that, with in a literal sense, God helped to break down Jericho's walls. Maybe we have our own walls that we need to break down that are preventing us from God, preventing us from reaching others, maybe. And then the other thing is that growing up, Joshua in the Battle of Jericho, like one of those, I would see like these videotapes that are cartoons. We'd grow up on those, like the children's books. But there's also like this, I forgot what it's entitled, but basically, it was like one of the coolest videos I'd see because of like people are literally yelling, as they were marching around the city, they're yelling out to break these walls down, but no one has ways and provisions that we, within our natural sense, can't comprehend. And so that's why, in Joshua 1 verse 9, in the very first chapter, I think is one of the reasons why, God is with Joshua wherever he goes. He'll don't be afraid, because even though you may see yourself limited in this capacity, he can still provide in a different way.
Awesome. Love that. That was actually the first verse I ever memorized.
Oh, okay, let's go.
We have that all over the house. Cool. Thanks for sharing. And one last thing before we wrap up. We always do the daily driver, or your essential tool. What gets you through the day, and what do you feel like could be impactful in other people's lives should they pick it up?
Okay. All right. So away from the phone, which you discouraged me from, and I did think of one thing, and it is technology. It's an Echo Dot, the Amazon Alexa Echo Dot. That oh man, that has done wonders for me because it acts as multiple things. It can be your weatherman. It could be your ambient music setter, for your room. Let's say it's quiet. You can set like Echo or Alexa, play John Mayer, and in the background, and you're just vibing in the room. It has also been my sleep alarm. So I would just literally say, Echo, set an alarm for 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. and I would wake up to that. And it's simple because all you do is voice commands. And you can also set reminders. You can ask multiple questions. It has like Google or some kind of search engine integrated into that. And so it's just an all-in-one thing. So I advise getting one. I think it's better than having to always look at our phone too. And it's like it's wireless and handless. So you can just be, from your bed, you can just, play whatever you want.
Awesome. What a world of technology we live in. We personally go Google Home. But there are also lots of different smart devices that you could use at home. But fantastic. Well, Praise, I appreciate the time. And for now, I guess that's it for us.
Cool. Thank you.